All right, thank you for staying with us. From the outcome of the 2023 election, at least 8 political parties will be fairly represented in the 10th National Assembly, making it crucial to elect a Senate president that would be the choice of a majority of the members and ensure sustainable democracy. Now, since the President-elect Bola Tinubu is from the Southwest, Kashim Shettima, his vice, is from the North, some Nigerians are asking that the seat of the Senate presidency be zoned to the Southeast or South-South. Mike, that's been the subject of controversy over time. In fact, recall that even we had a guest recently, I think that was 2 weeks ago, who was saying, no, it should be zoned to the Northwest because of the contribution they made to the election with the numbers that came from that end. And there are those who are saying for the purpose of fairness, equity, justice, we must look at other regions, must look at religion as well. If we are saying we want to unify the country, the third person in the country must be from the Christian, must be a Christian, and from any other of the region of South-South or Southeast. And then those in the South-South are saying the Southeast since 1999 has maintained this position back to back for 5 years. And with not unhindered, it should come to us, the South-South now. Interesting conversations with regards to
No, really, it's interesting. At times like this, because our politicians are people are the way they are, they wouldn't wait for that time before they start making the move. In fact, an average politician would start making his or her move ahead of time. Now, if you look at the zoning system in Nigeria, a lot of persons have come to understand that the context or the concept of zoning balances the issues of suspicion, the issues of inclusiveness. Yes. It creates inclusiveness, and then it creates also fairness. That is why there is what they call the federal character principle, which was made a policy backed by law in such a way that public offices are spread to give a semblance of fairness and inclusion to every part of this country. Nigeria is known to be one of the countries very multicultural, multidimensional country, and even multi-religious. So all of those factors form the personalities and the people that we are as a people.
Of course.
So in our polity, in our policies, in our governance system, it has to also be seen to reflect the differences and the diversity that we all are. That is what brings this issue of zoning. Now, it has not formally been written or backed by law to say, okay, we have enshrined this in a law that when a president comes from one geopolitical zone, the vice president should come from another, or the Senate president should come from another. That has not been vetted.
All right.
We understand we have a guest.
Yes, we have joining us former Secretary General of Ijaw Youth Council, Alfred Kemepadu. He joins us now. Alfred, good morning. It's good to see you again after it's been quite a while.
Alfred, nice to see you.
How you doing?
Good morning. Right, we have such a limited time to talk about this. But now, looking at the issues surrounding the 10th Assembly, who emerges as the Senate President, there's been so many issues and arguments with regards to equity, fairness, and justice. There's the aspect of unifying the country. And there are those who are saying it should be zoned to the Southeast, South-South. And there's also the argument of those who are saying that because of what we contributed to the election, it should come to us, talking about those in the Northwest. Now, where do you stand in this divide if we are looking at the matter of competency, equity, fairness, justice?
I will stand with the people. And by that I mean, politicians have started again. What we contributed to the table, what we do this, or we do that, all of that, it's still important. But you see, if this country was a patient in an hospital, then we can say this country is in the emergency ward. I'm not saying this for the sake of criticism. I'm saying this statesmanly, let me use that word. So what we need at this particular point in time, as important as the zoning and the composition to reflect federal character and all other components of the society is, what is even more important that is not being discussed is the competence of who becomes the Senate president. Because I tell you something, you see, no law is as important as the budget. The budget of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, where our national cake is shared, where everything that concerns our welfare as a country is appropriated, will go through the National Assembly. So what we need to begin to concentrate, the conversation that is supposed to be on, is who is that Senate president that will come at a time like this and help the president, okay, craft a Nigeria that will become the Nigeria of our dreams. You see, the politicians have got, politics is important, but it's not more important than the stakes. So the issue of competence should rise above every other thing. Competence in terms of who, you see, the legislature is not a body that is set up to fight the executive at any point in time. The legislature is that arm of government that is set up to complement the activities of the executive. So the question will be, who is that Senate president that will show the president-elect that will be subsequently sworn in as president the kind of understanding, the kind of support, working hand in gloves, as you may say, to see how we can speedily bring this country back on track in terms of having the country of our dreams. That is what is more important. And that conversation is lacking. I'm not saying that the other conversations of let there be the Southeast, the South-South, where I also come from, I completely agree with those who say that we have contributed immensely to the development of this country in terms of the oil that will contribute. All of those conversations are valid, okay? But the most valid conversation is who will be a team player.
It's quite interesting to see from that perspective, because if there's an argument that a certain geopolitical zone provided most of the votes that won the government, there's also a section of a geopolitical zone who will say, well, when it comes to the resources that is keeping the country going, we are providing the most. So, but in all, every part of Nigeria is coming up to the table with something. But let's talk about the president-elect. What role does he have to play? Why should he be interested in who becomes the next Senate president?
Yeah, he should be interested because who becomes the next Senate president has a role, okay, to play in terms of stabilizing his government. That's why I'm talking about the content and the capacity of the person, okay? I'll tell you something. Ordinarily, this is a legislative affair. This is an affair that should end in the chambers of the National Assembly. It ordinarily is not supposed to be the business of the president. But you see, we can't run away from the realities that we have in Nigeria. Okay, that is why it looks as if the president has got to interfere. Look at the current Senate. Yes, you may say that a particular party A has more members, but the truth is, the members of the minority parties are even the unstated majority. That's the simple truth, and that's the beauty of democracy, okay? So coming back to your question, what role do they have to play? They have a big role in stabilizing his government. That is why in the beginning I said, it shouldn't be a Senate president and a Senate presidency that will begin to see the executive as an opposition. It should be a Senate presidency that has the capacity to work together with the executive, lobby the executive, make friends with the executive, put the country first in terms of budgeting, in terms of screening and all other legislative duties. They begin to ask the question, what is best for Nigeria? So that's why we should place premium on the capacity, the experience, and the content of character of who becomes the Senate president, more than this region contributed this. And let me also tell you this. Those making the conversations that those from the Southeast didn't contribute much to this election and all of this, those kind of arguments are not fair in a country like this. They have started all these political debates. This country at this particular point in time needs healing. Yes, there's a Southeast, they are the governor. Let us not deny the fact that we're almost treating those from the Southeast as if they are the blacks in America that ought not to be president. No, they have a right to come together and to say, oh, ours should also be president. So those arguments are valid, and if they voted in that line, it's valid. It doesn't mean that we should use it against them. And when you achieve victory in life, you appropriate your victory with humility. And even in failure, you appropriate your failure in humility. So those who didn't get it in the Southeast, I dare to say, carry yourself with some form of humility. And those who think not those who think, those who have also won the presidency according to God's will, carry yourself with humility. This is not a time to begin to vilify other. This country needs healing. Oh. You need to understand this. So what we should be looking at today is who has the character, who has the competence, who has the emotions, you understand, to become Senate president that will assist the president in achieving his dreams. If I want to speak selfishly here, for me, I will say, okay, let it come to the South-South. I'll even zero it down to former governor of Bayelsa State, Henry Serake Dixon, because he has the capacity, he has the wherewithal. But you see, at this point in time, I will beg the president and the presidency to say, please, check the content of the character of these individuals. The much the executive can do is to influence. They cannot get into the chambers and vote. The vote and the right, the privileges to make anybody Senate president lies in the legislative chambers, be it the green chamber or the red chamber. The red chamber, as in this case. So that's just it. So please, let me also further appeal to whoever eventually becomes that this is not the time to go and disturb the president. This is the time to humbly work with whoever is sworn in as president. Ask questions, make suggestions, humble suggestions, and read the mood of the nations and see how this nation can go forward. Because you see, when the rain falls, it falls on all of us. When the jackpot happens, it happens to everybody. Nobody is happy, okay? This country can still be the best, okay? We from the South-South, it is true that we contribute so much to the whole of this cake called the federal government. It is true, but there are other things that are also important, like I had stated. Please.
All right. Now, there are those who are concerned that as much as the Senate president must be friends with the president and all of it, like you mentioned, there are concerns of having a rubber stamp Senate. That's a concern. But then there is still the aspect of healing the nation. And that is where a lot of people, this argument of it should come from our end, it should come from this zone, it should come from this zone is coming up. How do we balance the aspect of competence as well as ensuring that we are not seen as being ignoring other zones, but unifying the country together in the decision of who emerges?
I completely agree that the unification of the country along religious lines, along tribal lines is important. That's why I'm saying that amidst these tribal and religious lines, okay, go for who has the competence to support the presidency and not just this political, let it go here, and it doesn't matter who goes. Because I'm not hearing that in the conversation of the competence of the person. If you ask my personal opinion, okay, of who from the Southeast, okay, that should be nominated as Senate president, my nomination will not fly politically. It wouldn't be either the APC or the... What about considering ranking senators like Abaribe? Is he bad? But you see, he's Abga. So you see, I don't want to dabble into the politics, because if I want to dabble into the politics, I will choose former Governor Sarah Dixon of Bayelsa State, because that is what is good for me. After all, his grandmother is from Ijebu. Okay, he had a long history with Asiwaju from the Alliance for Democracy.
All right.
He's got that history with them. He has, but you see, at this point, media and all, the competence, the content of character, who has all it takes to come and support the president that will be sworn in to do the best job. Because the Senate president is not just about making laws. We're not just making laws.
We'll have
you have to join the president to craft
here now.
A new country that is best for all of us.
All right. A fine place to leave the conversation. We must say thank you, former Secretary General of Ijaw Youth Council, Alfred Kemepadu. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me too.